Welcome back. Today I have three scary Christmas present stories that will make you realize that Christmas is not just about accepting gifts, because maybe those gifts are haunted, cursed, or maybe there's many other things afoot. Let's begin, and always remember, whether Christmas or not, darkness always follows. The Christmas present. There's been a toy that has caught the attention of millions of people across the world. They're called Hatchimals, and are those toy eggs that you interact with until the actual toy animal pops out of the egg, and they are now almost impossible to find in stores. Flipping through Amazon only frustrates me more as I realize that the cheapest ones are going for around $180. And there's no way that my meager salesman salary will be able to cover that expense. It's just that my son really wants one, and I need to keep looking for one that I will be able to afford, no matter how long it takes. I'm about to give up for the night until I find a Craigslist ad for a Hatchimal for just $59. I look through the ad and find out that it's some good Samaritan that has bought 50 of them, knowing that they will sell out quickly, and is now selling them for the same price he got them for. Filled with joy, I text the number that was listed on the page, and with my laptop, I head to my room to show my wife the great deal I managed to find. The person does not text me until the next morning. While I'm eating breakfast, I see a text from him saying that he does intend, indeed, and has some left, and he's willing to meet me at the Red Lobster that is just down the road from me. So I text him back saying I can be there with the cash in 20 minutes. Once I'm done getting ready for work, I head out and park at the Red Lobster. And waiting for about 7 minutes, I see a man in his 40s step out of a bright yellow truck. I get out of my car to greet him and notice that he has a prosthetic right arm and his face is littered with cuts. I mind my manners and shake his left arm, thanking him for being so generous at this time of year. With minimal words, he states that I should get my money out as he pulls the box with the green Hatchmal out of his truck and extends his prosthetic arm out, signifying that he wants my money. I'm feeling just a bit confused, but I take my wallet out and give him 3 20s and told him to keep the $1 change. With a nod and a quick thank you, he gets back in his truck and drives out of the parking lot. I can't help but feel like it was some sort of scam. But I'm already running late for work, so I just head off to the store I work at. With it being holiday season, our store is bustling with business, and before I knew it, I have met the sale goals for today, and it's time to go back home. While I'm driving back home, I realize that I completely forgot to wrap the present, so I stop by the local Walmart and get a Christmas bag with some Christmas themed tissue paper. Before I put the Hatchmal into the bag, I check it over to make sure that it's real. Comparing to what I have in my hand and what is on the picture on my phone, I quickly determine that it's real, and the guy was just creepy. Once I got home, I showed my wife the toy, and she insisted that we just give us the gift now. I mean, he's 8, and all he's been talking about for the last month, so we know we would appreciate getting his toy quicker. And on Christmas, we can just give him the little gifts that we had already gotten him. When he received his toy, his face lit up, and he gave us both a hug and kisses on the cheek. Ripping open the box, he started petting the egg, and the egg was making slight interactions with him back. 5 days before Christmas was when it finally hatched, revealing a tiny purple and blue owl with a tiny horn on top of its head. He automatically started petting it and caring for it as if it were a pet, and we knew that he truly loved it. After a couple of days of him petting it and carrying it around everywhere, we heard the Hatchimal start singing happy birthday, and we knew that I was finally getting to the toddler stage of the toy. This is the stage that you will teach it how to walk, play games, and just be a bit more functionalities. That's when I started noticing that the toy has now started to follow my son everywhere he goes. Tonight, I told him we were eating dinner in the living room to watch a Christmas movie. He raced down and took a seat at the couch. When my wife and I came into the living room with our dinner, we noticed the hatchman was halfway up the couch. I asked my son if he brought it downstairs with him, but all he said was it followed him down. So I just grabbed the toy and placed him in the kitchen out of reach from my son and came back to the living room. Once the movie ended, I took him upstairs and brushed his teeth, then sent him to bed. It wasn't until around 1 in the morning when my wife and I decided to head to bed. As I'm passing my son's bedroom, I notice he's still up and carrying on a conversation. I open the door and peek in to see him petting his hatchman and talking to him in the dark. Sneaking in, I hear the hatchman telling my son to sneak out of his house and to go to the end of the street. That scares me, but rage fills me. It fills every part of my body as I realize that the voice is of the man that sold me the bloody toy. I'll head out the bloody door. I'll be at the end of the street. Merry Christmas, you dumb idiot. I got a gift for my mum for Christmas. Let's just say I won't look at Christmas the same way ever again. When I was 10, my mum's health wasn't that great. She suffered from an unknown illness which affected her respiratory system deeply. Ever since that, I had to live on my own. I walked to school alone, ate dinner alone, and my mum was suffering the same as me. She was also alone. Every Friday, I would come visit my mum to see how she is doing. The doctors say that her illness isn't getting any better, and she will die soon, which made me sad. But I always wanted to make my mum feel as if she had company. So until a certain holiday, I would do odd jobs and then I would count my savings in order to buy gifts for my mother. It went that way, and I got a job at the age of 16. As the months went on, my mother was fighting through her illness. Every day felt like a never-ending war to her. I couldn't help but just look at her and just pray that God would help us, but that never happened. Days later, it was Christmas Eve, and it was snowing heavily. I was reading until I realized I had forgotten to give my mother a Christmas gift. I quickly put on my coat and scarf and hurried downstairs. I was worried, begging for all the gift stores to be open. As I hurried through town, there had to be one store open. As I rushed through the closed stores, I was happy that there was one store left, but at that very moment, I tripped, and the door to the one open store closed, and a sign that said open flipped to closed. That was when my heart sank. It was about 11, just minutes. It was 12, just minutes before midnight, and I have failed to get my mother a gift for Christmas. I started to cry and whimper until I suddenly heard a spark. I turned around and across the street, I saw a shop. Its lights flickered. As I saw it, I knew how desperate I was, so I quickly rushed across the street and went inside. There was nothing there exactly, just a staircase that went down. I went down the staircase and noticed there was a large machine. In front of it said, "What does the person you want to give a gift to desire the most?" And there was a keyboard next to it. I thought hard and long until I typed, "To become better and to not be in any pain because of an illness," and then I pressed enter. It took about an entire minute, and then a large, white, fluffy, stuffed cat animal came out of the machine. I looked at it and decided this would be the perfect gift that my mum would love. The next day was Christmas morning, and I hurried to the hospital. My mother was in. I surprised her with the gift I had gotten her, and her reaction was beyond happy. She looked at me and cried tears of joy that it reminded me so much of her own son, and that now she won't feel alone. That very day, we cried together. At night, I woke up at 10:45 to receive an urgent call from my mum's doctor. So I rode my bike to a hospital. But when I got in the hospital, the lights suddenly went off entirely. It surprised me. Was there a power outage? I used my phone's flashlight as the only light source as I ventured deep into the hospital. My heart was pounding because it felt like I heard footsteps, but not human. Heavy and fast. That's when my fear started to unfold. There was blood on the walls and on the windows. There was also corpses of nurses and doctors. Their bodies looked like someone must have bitten into them. My worst fear came to my mind, and I rushed up the stairs to my mother's hospital room. When I opened the door, I saw a horrific sight that to this day I cannot recover from. My mother was held in the hands of a giant being. It was a stuffed cat animal that I had given to her. It slurped my mother's intestines as it let out a demonic grin and giggle. I screamed and ran. The stuffed animal cat followed me, and I ran with all the stamina I could, breathing, screaming, crying until I finally got the hell out of there. I soon called the police as soon as I got home. I didn't bother questioning the police because they saw the horrific footage happen all on the camera. The hospital was a massacre. It even ended up being on the news. There were completely no survivors, and to this day, I couldn't help but still remember that stuffed animal cat, nor the store that I had got it from. This event was ultimately what traumatized me, and I still can't look at Christmas as a day of hope or joy anymore. Christmas shopping. It seemed like a good idea, a good plan, to go straight after work to the shops and do Christmas shopping early this time. It was already strange right when I arrived. The centre was far too empty for a normal Thursday night. The sky too didn't seem very promising. Grey clouds rolling in, the cold wind getting harsher by the minute. At the time I had bought my first item, a beautiful pair of long brown gloves for my mother. Half the shops had already been closed. Everybody seemed rushed and worried. I figured it was just the weather. I didn't know the centre was going to close early, and I certainly didn't know it would close that quickly and without warning. I was in the DIY shop when I suddenly needed the bathroom. Not something that I wanted to describe in detail here, but it was urgent. I needed quite some time, but I only really noticed how late it was when the bathroom lights turned off. No windows. The room was pitch black. Using my mobile phone as a flashlight, I found out of the stall, made my way where I expected the sink to be, but washed my hands. From my estimations, it was maybe around 10 p.m, not much later. Definitely not 11. That's when I heard it for the first time. It sounded like singing. It seemed like a children's song, or maybe an old folk song that I didn't remember. When I finally managed to dry my hands, I patted along the wall until I found the door, pulled it open, and was surprised that the rest of the building too was covered in darkness. No lights at all. No shop decorations. No Christmas lights blinking on trees. Although I was sure I had seen some earlier during my trip, not even any green or red emergency lights to lead the way out. My only guide was the singing. But I soon noticed that it wasn't singing. It was too rhythmic, too repetitive, and at the same time, I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like English, but the words didn't make sense, as if I was hearing a foreign language based on English sounds. And it wasn't just one voice. It was definitely a group, or maybe even a whole choir. All were versed in the song. The voices were always perfectly in unison. I stumbled my way through the empty shopping areas. At this point, I didn't even think of going away from the voices. They seemed like the only trustworthy thing, the only thing I could really make out. My mobile was too weak to give any serious light. I was nearly empty and kept turning the screen off every few seconds, depriving me of my only source of light. Still, I moved forward, around corners I didn't remember walking before, feeling my way around strange textures that I didn't must be Christmas decorations I hadn't noticed before. They seemed to cover all the walls, a soft, nearly fluffy texture, comfortable to the touch, but stinging whenever I moved my hand along the walls to feel my way. It must have been at least 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and I had no idea anymore where I was. I had no idea where I even could have been. The shopping centre wasn't big. All the walks had seemed fairly straight, but still, I had made so many turns. The corridors seemed tighter, and my mobile didn't seem to reveal anything but more of this strange material on the walls, glowing a dark green or brown in the dim light of the screen. The only thing that kept me from going insane was the song. Such a sweet chorus. It had hypnotic nature. And although I didn't understand the words, nor did I remember any of the melody or song, I had the distinct, barely controllable urge to sing along. I stumbled forward. The wall seemed to get closer every few steps, but I wasn't able anymore to turn around. The choir called me. I could hear the voices, how they were meant for me, how they were singing to help me find my way, to make me join them. I stopped using my mobile phone at some point. I lost track of time. I kept walking. The voices kept getting louder, and still they always seemed distant. Even the floor now seemed to be covered with a soft texture, and the walls felt even softer, even more comforting than before. It felt like they were trying to hold me, to embrace me, and make me happy. Then I tripped. At first I didn't know what it was. The choir seemed close now, very close, maybe just around the next corner. Without light, without even any sense of orientation, it was impossible to tell. I knew that my mobile was nearly empty, but one last time, I used it to shine around me, to find out what made me trip. The light covered only a small area at the time. The soft green material appeared in every direction. I scanned the floor again and again. Whatever tripped me must have rolled away. I shone the light around me, slowly covering an ever-growing circle, while I worried about how empty the battery must be. The choir sang more intense and better than before. I could feel the passion of the chant, the deep energy and desire behind it, and how strongly it was calling me. I couldn't resist. I pushed myself up on my hands, not an easy feat, on the soft material, and noticed how weak I felt. But I didn't care. They were calling me. They were chanting for me. I stumbled on, my mobile in hand. I don't remember clicking on my phone. Maybe it was an instinct or a twitch, but suddenly I saw the reflection. Something white, just on the floor to my right. The light turned off again. I moved closer, turned it on, round, maybe the size of a small melon, a ball. The chant got more intense. I felt it around me, as if I was already part of it. My heart already told me to sing, but my curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed for the object. Hard to the touch, smooth with a few dents. I moved my fingers along it as if in a trance. Then the object curved inwards. My fingers moved inside, deep inside. 2 fingers went smoothly right into the center of the object. I moved my fingers out, felt more, and there was a second hole. I turned the object and shone my mobile phone on it, a skull. my fingers right inside the eye socket. I must have screamed. I don't remember screaming, but I remember hearing a scream. Suddenly, silence. The chanting had stopped. Then hissed orders, again in a language I didn't understand, but I understood the tone. Anger. Anger at the disruption. Anger against me. I tried to scramble up, but the ground was too soft and I felt too weak. I pushed my hands and feet against the ground, but it just gave in and seemed to lock in and place me in like quicksand. I panicked. I tried to dig my fingers into the ground, to pull myself forward, but the mass didn't give in. I heard footsteps, quickly coming closer, hitting hard against solid ground. I was desperate. In the last bout of energy, I finally threw myself towards the side, rolled on my side, in the direction I thought I'd come from. The room seemed to brighten just slightly. Not enough for me to see properly, but enough for me to notice that light was coming closer. In exasperation, I pushed against the wall and floor at the same time, dug my knees deep in the soft but sharp ground, and finally I was back on my legs, running. I don't remember much of the way. I remember moments of the light coming closer while I ran against walls. Whenever the corridor made a curve, cursing under my breath. There were more hissing commands and other conversations in this weird language that sounded like my own but was simply incomprehensible. I don't remember how exactly I got out. One of the times I ran against the wall, there was something hard, resistance like a wood, but then the wall broke with a loud cracking sound. I fell on a hard floor, screaming in pain, but at the same time relieved to be on a ground I finally understood. I had curses just a few steps behind me. I jumped on my feet. Running on the hard ground was easy. It nearly seemed relaxing. At first, I didn't even notice that I could see again. I just kept running, straight until I realized that I knew where I was. I was back in the mall, right next to the DIY shop, right next to the exit. Still running, I changed directions, turned left towards the exit, only to see in the blinking Christmas lights that there was heavy metal bars behind the doors. There were steps behind me, many steps, of at least 5 or 10 people. Without any alternatives, I still ran towards it, and saw the thin window right to the left of the entrance doors. No metal bars, my only chance. Gathering all my strength, I sprinted forward, right towards the window. Not even the screams behind me could hold me back. My shoulder moved forward without me even thinking about it. I hit the hard window. Pain. The high-pitched sound of glass shattering screamed commands behind me, but I stumbled forward. I ran for about 2 blocks, then I jumped into someone's front yard and fell on the freezing ground behind some bushes. Panting heavily, I tried to calm my nerves, listening for steps, screams, chants, anything. But the only thing I could hear was the white noise of cars on a distant street. I must have passed out for a few moments. When I woke up, I was cold, far too cold. People around me, voices speaking to me, sirens, and red and blue blinking lights hurting my eyes and ears. Sir? Are you okay? Sir? Can you hear me? I was released 2 days ago. That was nearly 2 years ago, Saturday the 10th of December 2011. The mall reported that there hadn't been any broken windows, nor did I appear on the security tapes. No shopkeeper remembered me. Nobody believed me. They sent me to a therapist. I still go. Once every 2 weeks to tell her about my day. She says it likely was a hallucination, maybe because of drug abuse or dehydration. But I don't believe her. I know what I saw, what I felt, and I know what I heard. Occasionally their chant still invades my dreams, but I'm okay. Life is normal now, but I know for so sure I will do my Christmas shopping late. I want to be among people. I want to squeeze through the crowds. I am scared of being alone. I am scared of the dark. I want to have light and to see people. I know that it all sounds crazy. I know that nobody believes me. Probably not even you. But I'm sure it happened. I'm sure I'm not crazy. I still have the gloves. Well, guys, thank you all for listening. I hope these 3 scary stories made you cautious of shopping at Christmas time and also cautious about the presents you get. I'll see you again very soon. So until then, love the darkness as it always follows.